This is the BBC.
This podcast is supported by advertising outside the UK.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
If you're struggling to lose weight, you've probably heard about weight loss medications like Wegovy or Zepbound, and you might be wondering if they're right for you. Meet PlushCare, a leading telehealth provider with doctors who are there for you day and night to partner with you in your weight loss journey. If you qualify, they can safely prescribe you medication from the comfort of your own home. To get started, visit plushcare.com/weightloss. That's plushcare.com/weightloss. plushcare.com/weightloss.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
So what have we got here?
We've got a Thai green chicken curry, a chickpea and sweet potato curry, roasted chicken, pan-fried sea trout, and then on the side we've got steamed rice and seasonal vegetables.
Welcome to the food programme with me, Leyla Kazim, where this week we are exploring the world of food and sport. You may remember our recent foray into this topic when we had lunch and discussed all things food with Gary Lineker. If you missed it, do look it up. It is well worth a listen. But in this episode, we're taking a deeper look. What do elite sports stars eat to fuel their top performances?
So this is like the base of tennis and paddle in the UK. So you've got all the top athletes around the UK who come and train here. The likes of Emma Raducanu, Andy Murray, Katie Bolter.
What can we learn from them as everyday athletes? And what, if anything, should we make of the plethora of sport food and drinks that are popping up everywhere, from post office checkouts to high street sport fashion retailers? We began at the National Tennis Centre in Roehampton in southwest London, the UK's tennis and paddle hub, to meet a sports star at the top of her game and find out how she eats.
My name's Tia Norton. I am British #1 and I play paddle tennis. And yeah, this is basically the canteen where they serve up lunch. Everyone sits down, has their food and goes back to training or whatever they're doing here.
For those listening who might not know about the sport, could you explain a little bit?
Yeah, so paddle originated in Mexico in 1969. I would describe it as more of a combination between tennis and squash.
So this programme is all about food and sport, and we are talking to nutritionists, sports scientists, athletes, sports professionals. And what we really want to know is basically what people eat when they are training at a level like you are. So could you talk me through your sort of average week in terms of how much activity you do and how much training and exercise?
So on the daily, during pre-season, we were doing between 3.5 to 4 hours a day of training. So it's normally back-to-back sessions.
That is a lot.
It's quite a lot.
So how important is what you eat to your performance on court? And if you've eaten something that maybe you shouldn't have, can you feel that on court? Does it translate?
So ever since I was younger, what I've eaten has always really affected my performance. Timings of when I eat and what I eat has actually become really important. Of course, I do have the old snack and little treat here and there, because being really strict on my diet is not something that I'm too keen on.
So what would a daily meal plan look like for you typically, sort of from breakfast to the evening?
So breakfast can consist of toast with avocado and eggs, or sometimes I'll put Philadelphia spread on there as well to add in a little bit of cheese, or it can be yogurt, granola, fruit, and then I tend to put protein powder in my yogurt as well. And then normally in between training sessions, it's either like dates or bananas or something like the quick carb sauce. And then lunch, really important to replenish what I've lost basically. So big on the protein, so either chicken, salmon, pork, and then pairing it with a good carb source, so rice or pasta or something like that. I have had advice from nutritionists in the past, and one of the things that I've taken away from it is eating a full fat diet is actually much better for performance. Full fat milk, bacon, cheese, like not cutting any of that out. And since I have incorporated full fat into my diet, like I'm enjoying it much more because I'm not having to restrict myself. So tea and coffee I actually don't drink, so I never have any caffeine. So when I take caffeinated drinks onto court with me, they boost me up like you wouldn't believe. So I do have the occasional Red Bull.
And so then what would you drink to hydrate?
Water. I mean, water is literally the only thing I drink throughout most of the day, to be honest. And then obviously if it is quite a humid area or a really hot area, then I'll add electrolytes into my water as well. A lot of people tend to track their calories as well, so they know obviously they're burning this amount of calories, right? I need to eat this amount to replenish what I've lost. That's not really something that I'm keen on. Again, I used to track my calories and I'd go above and beyond, like trying to make them perfect and stuff like that.
What do you like to eat in your downtime when you're having some time off? Have you got any guilty pleasures?
Cereal.
Cereal? That's not what I was expecting.
Cereal, honestly, I'm a big lover of cereal.
Get through a whole box.
Yeah, you know, like those mini Weetabix with the chocolate chips.
Yes.
Or some chocolate shreddies, or cereal just blesses the heart.
Yeah.
But no, going into the stuff that I would eat more, we've got protein flapjacks, so I actually took one of those after I trained today. We've got bananas, we've got oranges, apples, so good source of carbs and fruit for just before training. So a lot of these snacks are good to take on court with you.
Oh, okay.
So nuts or a flapjack to take with you as well, bananas, the fruit, really good energy sources for during training.
So is that what you need then? Say you're in the middle of a long match. What is the thing that you need to get you through to the end? Is it sugar?
Quick sugar, yeah. Quick sugar, quick carbs. So bananas are really fast digesting carb. Obviously you don't want to be taking bread on with you because that's really slow digesting. So quick sugars, so sweets, people always say are really good. I've seen Coco Goff, she carries on a box of fruit with her because fruit's really high in sugar as well.
Good tips for when I become pro elite sports person. Thank you.
No, exactly.
That was British #1 paddle player Tia Norton. These days, many top athletes and teams have a huge range of food experts on hand, from sport nutritionists to performance chefs. To find out more, we jumped on a bus to a well-known gym chain just down the road from Tia, to meet someone who has worked with both elite and everyday athletes.
Can we order some food? Can we do an ultimate toast, please? Do you fancy a plant-based smoothie? Yeah, we'll do nature's protein from the protein smoothie as well. I like the hemp seeds in there. Let's try the Avo falafel wrap as well, please. And that's it. We're just over on the table round the corner. Thank you. I'm Matt Gardner, so I'm the head of nutrition at Virgin Active. So I'm a performance nutritionist by trade. I used to work in sports, a bit in healthcare, and then now in this role, we're rolling out nutrition coaching across all of our clubs in the UK because there's just so much nutrition noise out there. People are second guessing everything and they're so confused, and then they end up really not changing anything and feeling bad about themselves. A lot of self-destructive thoughts around people's diets, aren't there?
You mentioned confusion. I mean, there is just so much information about what to eat if you're someone who does sports or goes to the gym, and there seems to be a proliferation of kind of sports and nutrition influencers. Is it helpful?
You know, we're all craving more energy and trying to perform well in the modern world, aren't we? And nutrition plays into that massively. So I'm glad it's coming more towards the forefront, but I am frustrated at times that there's a lot of this online noise and it might force the average person or listener, they might shift something very drastically just because they've heard it.
What did you do before you were at Virgin?
So I used to be a performance nutritionist in rugby and in the ultra endurance space, in the outdoor activity space, so for North Face, working with long distance runners, alpinists, climbers, things like that. but I began my career in rugby union. So from the nutrition side there, players would come in, say pre-season, and then the nutritionist job would be collaring players, making sure they're coming into that, making sure they're taking the right thing that's been designed for them. As things have progressed, working alongside a performance chef. So that has really grown in professional sports, where chefs on site work with the performance nutritionist to basically create the right foods that have the right components to help with fueling and recovery. It's small things in professional sport. It's like improving the players' morale. So sometimes if foods can be served in certain ways, or things can be done outside on a hot day and they have alternatives to things like ice creams or beverages, it can make a massive difference.
That was Matt Gardner, sport nutritionist, and we will come back to him very shortly. But first I wanted to know how eating varies according to the sport. How would a pro rugby player eat compared to a triathlete, for example? Well, let's hear from those who would really know. First up, Ben Cohen, who played in the World Cup winning England rugby team in 2003.
So you're doing 10 kilometres a day, for 5 days of the week. And then match day, you're going to do anywhere between 9 and 13 kilometres was my rate in tackles and carries. So you are working a lot. So how do I replace it? Because I can't eat enough to be able to get the protein to repair or get back out in the afternoon. So you have to understand the food that you can eat, that you can digest quickly. Then we started to understand what supplements we needed, what our deficiencies were. Are we having peaks and troughs of our energy, and how do we hone down on those 0.01 percenters? And because when you're looking for greatness and looking to be world class, then it comes down to minute. It's not 0.1, it'd be like 0.000.1 where you can get gains, and diet is a massive part of that. I'm sure they still do this. I'll be really surprised if they don't. But on a Friday afternoon, we would get this chocolate that was our present, and it was like a tipping slice. And there was lots of it. We would eat healthy, train really hard all week, everything that you do. And our treat was Friday afternoon, about 4:30. Dave Redding would come in with our chocolate treats, and we would love it. And it saved us sneaking out the hotel. So we would have all those, tested, have a test back, and then we'd measure our food, would weigh it, how much we're going to have. It was a bit tedious, but definitely worth doing. But that's extreme. It was my job, along with every one of that squad, really, of 2003, and for me, we were ultra professionals.
Hi, I'm Nat Metcalf, and I play wing attack for the England Roses netball team. The night before a big game, a go-to meal for me would be 2 portions of salmon, sweet potato mash, veggies, and a side of garlic bread, and I definitely have to have a bit of rice pudding for my dessert. A typical week of training in season for me looks like 3 netball sessions, 3 weights sessions, and 2 to 3 conditioning sessions, which may be a mixture of on-feet and off-feet activity. One thing I watch out for in terms of my nutrition is hydration. Not only do I think it helps my body and my joints massively, but I'm also a massive believer in it helping my performance and decision making when out on court and during training sessions. I would definitely have a chocolate milk straight after the game. And to celebrate a big win, my favourite thing to eat is going to have to be a pizza with pepperoni on top.
That was Nat Metcalf, England netballer and captain of the Manchester Thunder Super League netball team. And before her, Ben Curran, former England rugby player. But what about endurance sports? What are those athletes eating?
Hi, my name is Emma Pallant-Brown. I am a GB professional triathlete, and at the moment I'm currently training for the T100 races, which are basically a swim, bike, run over 100 kilometers. And in the build up to the races, I pretty much cut fiber out of my diet. I just find I can get a funny stomach on the run if I have too much fiber leading in. My lunch would be white rice with maybe an egg, so a bit of protein in there just to slow down kind of the carb absorption, hydrating super well, so always having electrolytes in all of my water. And then I try before every race, around 2 hours out, have white rice with fructose. And then during the race, I'm trying to have that 90 grams of carb every hour. That's kind of a good number for me, and I take that in carb drink.
That was triathlete Emma Pallant-Brown. Sport and food haven't always been so closely analysed. Back in the 80s, pro sport nutrition was a lot more relaxed. as former football star Gary Lineker told us recently.
When I first started at Leicester, I had to have fillet steak. I was like 19, 20, and you thought, I'll just take that chance. And nobody even discussed what foods you'd eat then, really. It was just whatever you fancied. When I went to Spain, even the day of a game, there would always be a bottle of Rioja on the table and 4 glasses, and you would drink the whole bottle between you, so you'd have like a glass and a half each.
Thanks to Gary Lineker for that anecdote of sporting meals from days gone by. But how does any of this apply for the everyday athlete? Would following the diet of an elite netballer or runner help improve our own sport performance? Here's Matt Gardner with some expert insight.
You know, with the average person, if it's, say, 2-3 times a week exercising compared to, say, that athlete exercising twice a day and then performing at the weekends, I'd say those things are the main differences. So a lot of us can, you know, work on establishing good hydration for our bodies and eating balanced meals, you know, three balanced meals or so a day, but keep it very simple. So if you were going to exercise in the gym, say an hour before, you might look to have a snack. Whereas with athletes, obviously, it's very deliberate when your training meals are, when your recovery meals are, when your hydration is, when your supplementation is.
Things like protein bars and energy drinks. I can understand they have a place for people who are working out a lot, professional athletes who are training at a certain level. Is there also a place for them for your average person who goes to the gym now and again?
If you are caught short and you are looking to get some energy or a stimulant or something protein based and there aren't any other options, it's choosing something like that might be convenient, but then not allowing that to be the norm, because I think these things can creep in. They're costly, and also a lot of the ingredient profiles, and a lot of us can't pronounce what's in them. We don't necessarily know. The odd thing might creep in, and then that goes from being something that you grab here and there, say supplementing your diet, to then if it's in every day, it becomes part of your diet and a food product. And a lot of these flavours and things are, you know, man-made, and if that's continually pushing a sweet tooth and those flavours are continue to be, you know, sweeter, richer, more intense, then you're always chasing that fix, I'd say.
We told our audience we were chatting today, and if they had any questions for a nutritionist, and I know we've touched on this already, but let me ask you anyway. One that came up was protein powder, yes or no?
Is it that granular?
It was that many words.
I just have to say, well, context is key, really. Am I allowed to say that? Yeah, cool. That's what I'll say. Yeah, context is key for protein powder.
Give me more. Let's face it, when you are in a gym, so many people are swigging from these bottles and they contain protein powder. And then if you're not taking it, you're probably thinking, am I supposed to be having this?
I think most people can probably get it through Whole Foods. You know, some people have the convenience of a protein powder, or they're trying to boost the amount of grams of protein they eat a day, and they take those things. But if you want a yes or no answer, let's just say no. You can do it through Whole Foods. But if you really do have a goal of really increasing the amount of grams of protein you're eating, and you're finding it hard, you have an opportunity to add other nutrients into them as well. I think if people just think protein shakes, they just think powder and water. It can be so much more. We don't all have to become bodybuilders, of course. But yeah, I think from a muscle loss point of view, as we age, protein's important. Protein's important for immunity. I think people know less about that. But that's one of the macronutrients, you know, considering carbohydrates for energy, considering fat for energy, and for vitamin absorption and our cellular health and things. So protein's obviously the focus in the gym, but it's one of 3 other macronutrients.
And then another question we had was, what is the best thing to eat after a run?
For me, I do quite like a smoothie, and you don't have to put protein powder in it. You can put whatever you like in it, because it's great for hydration. You know, afterwards you might not want a whole meal that's high in, you know, vegetables, and so for me, I think that ticks a lot of boxes.
And what would be in that smoothie for you?
I want it cold, because when I run, I obviously get quite hot and sweaty. So the ice cubes definitely, banana definitely, and nut butter definitely, and then I might use a yogurt or something like that for adding a bit of protein and a bit of calcium. Again, that might help with the thickness too.
Matt, thanks so much. So much good information.
And hopefully it's given a little window into professional sport, performance nutrition, performance chefs, these types of practitioners and people that work in these environments that maybe not as known about. You see the players, you see the coaches, people listening to this, that, performance nutritionists. I've got a lot of colleagues who are still in it full time, that work in clubs and graft, and, they're kind of behind the scenes, really.
That was Matt Gardner, sport nutritionist and ultramarathon runner in his own right. So we're about halfway into our exploration of sport and food, and I thought it would be a good time to reflect. Here with me is producer Nina Pullman. And Nina, I feel like we've learnt a lot already.
We have. What are your key takeaways so far, Leyla? Has there been anything that surprised you about the diet of an elite athlete?
What's been the most surprising is that actually what these guys eat isn't a world away from what normal people eat. On their plate, they're still aiming for protein and fibre and carbs. It's not like they're having complex, strange concoctions that your everyday person wouldn't recognise. I feel like the main difference is actually what they need during the performance itself. So like if they're halfway through a game or a match and they need something to carry them through to the end, that seems to be the difference, that they need that quick sugar hit.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other thing which really stood out to me was the sheer amount of fuel that they need. Very different. And
also how actually challenging it is to get that amount of calories inside you.
Yeah.
It feels like a problem some of us would like to have. I need to eat more. I need to have 500, 1,000 extra calories a day. But actually, it's not that easily done.
So what do you feel at this point are the gaps in the story? What else would you like to know?
What I have noticed is there just seems to be a lot of food and drink products that seem to be designed and aimed at people who do sports. So, you've got things like caffeinated drinks, energy drinks, high protein bars. And it's confusing because as somebody who, I try to work out relatively regularly, I look at them and think, am I supposed to be eating these? And if so, why? And if I don't, am I making it harder for my body to be able to do these sports? Do I need to have them? What level of sport do you need to do to qualify to start having them? That is very confusing.
So I had a conversation a few months ago with a group of young people from a campaigning organisation called Bite Back, and they were talking about how sport has become the latest kind of area of focus for them. Their normal work looks at how junk food and multinational food companies reach children and young people with their products. And they're very concerned about what they've seen in sport in this area. So I thought we should catch up with them and see what they've been looking at in this area.
I think that's a very good idea because I'm interested in not just what we should be eating for sport, but actually what all of the other information sources are telling us we should eat and whether the two are the same thing. So yeah, that is a great idea. I would love to get them on board as our sort of reporters in the field. Please let me know what you all find out.
I will definitely do that. I will be back in touch.
I like that we're getting young people to report on this because everyone is susceptible to marketing, but maybe even more so these young people who are quite often very much into their fitness, and I want to know how they feel about it. Because if we as fully fledged adults are confused, how must it be for young adults and teenagers? So I'm very interested to hear what they have to say.
So we're here on Reading High Street. Thanks so much for coming, Team Bite Back. Molly, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Molly, I'm 17, and I've been part of Bite Back for a couple of years.
And I'm Luke, I'm 18.
I'm Alice, I'm also 18 and I'm from Bite Back.
Our presenter couldn't make it today, but she has sent a voice note with a message for you all.
Hello Luke, Molly and Alice, it is Leyla here. I am so thrilled that you are helping me out with this. So here is your mission. I would like you to head out onto the high street into a couple of well-known sports shops, you know, the ones that sell fashion, trainers, sport as a lifestyle, you know the ones. And what I really want to know is, how is food part of this world? What is on sale? And what is appealing to you? And what doesn't appeal to you? Please could you buy a few examples of the food and drink and report back. Thank you so much for your help.
So I've heard you guys have already been looking into this a little bit.
Obviously, we are always talking about food and junk food and how it kind of surrounds us everywhere we go. And one of the main places that we realised that it was in sport, which is actually pretty bizarre when you think about it. Sport's meant to promote health, it's meant to promote lots of positive things in community, but instead it's been taken over by these really big food brands that are just using it as an excuse to pump junk at us.
How important are these kind of shops to people your age?
I think they're hugely important. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, I went into a shop in my local town to buy a pair of trainers, just because we need trainers, right? And I got to the checkout and I was literally surrounded by this like rainbow of junk food and all these like bottles and bars, and they were telling me that this is what I should be eating to be healthy and to be a sports person, because that's on the pitch as well. What the sports people are telling me is that if you eat this, then you'll be like me, you'll be a sports person.
Do any of you play sport? Are you active? Who's the sportiest here?
Probably me. I do ice skating and I used to do a bit of rowing. But the thing is, I mean, we could do 24 hours of sport all day, every single day of the week, and that still wouldn't be enough to combat the flood of junk food that's just constantly pumped at us.
For young people who are your age, who don't have your insight, what might they be expecting when they go into one of these shops?
It's interesting to think that we're going into a sports shop and what is surrounding us is not food that is going to be healthy. It's actually food that maybe be labelled as healthy or labelled as high in this or high in that.
Okay, cool. So we obviously don't know yet what you're going to find, so I'm really intrigued as to what you come back with. We're going to send you out as per Leyla's mission and report back. I'll be waiting here and looking forward to it.
Amazing.
Cool.
Perfect.
Got some really good chocolate bars.
Wow, the roving reporters have returned. So you've just come back from 2 unnamed sports retailers on this Reading High Street. So talk me through what you found. How did it go out there?
Yes, so we went into a couple of the shops, and right at the back where the tills were, we found a selection of chocolate bars, and these all had different messages on them, and some of them included love football, man of the match, and game on, and they've all got a little football on them, which clearly associates football and the game of sport, and so that just seems absolutely bizarre, to be honest. And we weren't shocked to see it because we know this is our everyday, and junk food really does surround us.
Cool. Okay, on to the next one.
So this one's an energy drink. When you pick it up and look at it, it's telling you that it's the perfect boost for every endeavour. It's got muscles on it. It's got pictures that kind of look like fruits on it. And it's marketed primarily towards children, whether it's like the big bubble writing, the colours.
What are some of the messages on there? Can you read them out that kind of link to the world of sport? I see on the front, does it say hydration? What does it say?
Hydration. It even talks about electrolytes, which are of course very good for hydration. But I think what's more interesting is not what it does say, but what it doesn't say. So it doesn't say the amount of kind of like ultra processed products in here, the amount of chemicals in here, the amount of sugar in here.
So it'll be really interesting. So I'll take some of these products with me, and I'm going to go and visit a professor of nutrition tomorrow, and he can look at these in detail and see if any of the claims hold up. Okay, what else did you find?
So I've got here 2 cans which are energy drink. Similarly to the other one, it's got the health claims on it. It's got B6 and B12 vitamins, and it's got a sign on the front that says sugar-free, and it is sugar-free, but it is not free of chemicals on the back, which I couldn't even begin to read because there's so many weird letters in them. It's got energy written on the front in bubble writing, so I definitely think that, I mean, that's what you want when you're doing sport, right, is energy, especially as a kid.
What other things have you seen in these kind of sports shops?
You don't just have a chocolate bar, but you have a chocolate bar that is also labelled as high in protein, and they're able to conceal themselves and blend into these environments very, very well. Something we say a lot at Bite Back is that junk food has become the cultural wallpaper.
So would you be tempted to eat or drink any of these products? Say you're doing a bit of rowing, Alice, or you're maybe going for a jog, or whatever it is you do in your active lives.
Yeah, 100%, because if I'm working out, I've had this issue before. I've just finished a workout, I'm very hungry, I want something quick to eat on my way back from training. I'm going to get a protein bar. I don't have time to stand there reading the label on the back of everything, and you would kind of hope, at least before I joined Bite Back, I hoped that these companies aren't going to be lying to me. They're not going to try and trick me and my desire to be healthy and fit.
Absolutely. I think, for example, if I went to the gym at my local leisure centre, I'll come out and the only thing I'm seeing is a vending machine with chocolate bars, with crisps, things that shouldn't be associated with fitness and sport.
How important would you say sport is to young people? Have you got friends who are interested in it? Could you kind of summarise how big of a part of young people's culture it's become?
Well, we do it in our schools, we do it for fun, we do it to go and watch it, to hang out with our friends. It's absolutely central, and it's kind of something that brings us all together. Like, everyone will have conversations about, okay, well, what sport team do you support? I support this one. It's very kind of binding across all levels of society, and it's quite sad, really, that we see these big junk food giants trying to insert them in these kind of like cultural practices and these things that we all love, and take that over and make it about profits instead.
It's a really, really huge problem, but particularly in sport, and that's what we're trying to focus on.
Well, thank you so much for your help. I'm going to report your findings back to Leyla, and then I'm going to take these products off you and visit a professor at the University of Bath tomorrow who's going to look at the ingredients in more detail and see if they have actually got any use in sport or not. That's the classic one. You see that everywhere at the moment.
Yeah. I'm Javier Gonzalez. I'm Professor of Nutrition and Metabolism at the University of Bath. I study both the general population but also endurance athletes and in particular cyclists.
These are some of the things we found yesterday, and I was just really interested to get your view in terms of what's actually in them.
Yeah, so if we start with these drinks, they've obviously got fluid and that can contribute to hydration. You don't need to have one of these drinks, you could just have water. But sometimes a bit of flavouring can help with our behaviour to encourage drinking and make sure we maintain hydration. They've got a very small amount of carbohydrate, 1 gram per 100 millilitre. That's probably not enough to have any meaningful effect on our physiology. So not really providing any fuel. And they've got a number of vitamins, so some B vitamins. There's also a bit of caffeine and some other ingredients. So one there I note is L-carnitine. And people normally add that to products as a fat burner. And it is important. It's an important molecule in our ability to burn fat as a fuel. However, ingesting it in this drink probably isn't going to affect our muscle in any way. One of the problems that an athlete has, an endurance athlete, is they can burn through a huge amount of energy very, very quickly. In an hour, a Tour de France cyclist at their best could easily burn through about 1,500 calories in just an hour. So we have found that if you combine glucose and fructose, two specific types of sugars, then you can increase the total amount of carbohydrate that's available to the body.
And does any of it translate to that kind of everyday scenario where people are active but not in any way kind of professional?
If we overconsume carbohydrates for a long period of time and we're very sedentary, and our capacity as humans to store energy as carbohydrate is limited, so we basically end up converting it into fat.
That's so interesting, and I guess that is the crossover point where it can be a bit of an issue for those of us who are not so active, shall we say.
Exactly. So not only are we probably less likely to do as many training sessions as an elite athlete, but even during those sessions, we don't have the capacity, or if you like, the size of the engine to burn through those calories. So we just don't need as much fuel.
Okay, so I've got a couple of bars here. These weren't picked out by the young people, so we didn't find any bars at the time in these shops that they went into, but I picked these up. They were just sold at a couple of train stations that I've been to recently. What do you think?
So, yeah, these are your classic kind of protein bars that you might find in many places now. Increasingly so, it seems. It used to only really be in gyms maybe or sports nutrition specific shops, but now you can be in a petrol station and pick up a protein bar.
This one's really interesting because it is the classic chocolate bar, so it's Mars high protein.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that about? Does that work as a concept?
If you're not concerned about the additional things that a chocolate bar gives you, which is quite a lot of fat and sugar and calories, and you need to ensure you're getting protein as well, then it does serve that purpose. But if you want protein without the additional fat and sugar and calories, then you've probably got other options that would be more suited. So it probably shouldn't be viewed as a health food. I think the main advantage of these things is that convenience.
Have they got much protein in? So what does this one have?
Yeah, so this one has 20 grams of protein per 100 grams. It's a reasonable amount. It is high protein. That's enough to get an effect. One thing to consider, though, is type of protein. So some of them sometimes contain collagen, which isn't an effective source of protein for building muscle. So they can sometimes advertise it as containing protein, but if they're using collagen, it's probably not doing very much at all. It's almost always extracted from animal products, so beef bones or chicken and so on. It's interesting that there's very little evidence that it does much, at least for tendon repair, muscle repair, but it's relatively cheap. So it can be a bit of what might be called a bulking agent in some of these products.
What are some of the ones we've got here then, do you reckon?
Yeah, so most of them use a bit of a blend, mainly from milk-based proteins, and they have been shown with many studies to be an effective source at stimulating this response that most people want from exercise, which is that muscle regeneration and repair. So there's bovine collagen hydrolysate here, so that is from a cow.
Nice, just what you want in your protein bar. So in summary then, I guess,
if you're looking for a drink to provide energy, then you probably want some carbohydrate in there. Actually, you might not want that energy, and you might just want something that's hydrating and refreshing, in which case these probably do achieve that. They've also got a load of other things that are probably neutral, probably not harmful, but probably not improving your performance. So you might view that as a bit of a waste of money, and you could just use some flavoured water if you wanted.
Or just water.
Yeah.
That was Javier Gonzalez, Professor of Nutrition at the University of Bath. We're zooming out a little now to hear a bit more about the public health implications of when big food meets big games.
Hi there, my name's Dan Hunt. I'm a senior adjunct fellow at the University of Queensland. My research looks at how commercial actors and practices and economic systems impact health.
Can you explain why sport appeals to food brands? And why does that matter?
So food companies don't sponsor a sports team because they think their logo will look nice next to a team's jersey colours. By sponsoring achievers and winners, junk food brands tie themselves to the elite performance of athletes. I think the thing that I find interesting from a sort of commercial influence on health perspective is what companies are essentially doing is taking their products that might be starchy, sugary, salty, processed food and beverages, foods that are often very dense in calories but have minimal to no nutritional value. And they're sort of trying to rebadge them as victory fuel, sort of leveraging the credibility of sports teams and elite athletes in the process. And I think something that is really, really striking and powerful is that if you're a kid without that knowledge of sports science, you might genuinely think that consuming those products make you better at sport. And to me, that's the really sad thing. It's particularly problematic with food and drink because it slightly misleadingly perpetuates the myth that you can consume lots of starchy, sugary, processed, ultra-processed foods as long as you balance it with exercise and as long as you sort of run it off, which has been one of the traps behind the growing obesity epidemic across the UK. Because we know that the drivers of overweight and obesity are far more to do with the overconsumption of calories, and typically the consumption of calories that are very, very dense with little nutrition that don't fill you up. Basically, companies putting the pressure off of themselves and onto individuals to say, well, just, do loads more exercise and run it all off and then it'll all be fine. It's not attainable, but also it feels like a dereliction of duty. Just sort of saying, well, we make an unhealthy product and then we'll market it relentlessly at you and then we'll line it up with sport so that you think it has some healthy connotations. And then if you struggle with your health because of it, that's not our problem. That doesn't feel sufficiently robust as an argument.
Have you got any examples of big food companies that have sponsored sporting events in recent years that we might remember? And an idea of the scale of that sponsorship?
When we had the Olympics in London in 2012, Coca-Cola and McDonald's were reported to have paid $100 million each to sponsor the Olympic Games. In 2020, we had the McVitie's were spending again. It was an estimated £10 million on a biscuit marketing campaign with Team GB adverts. It stands to reason that would track through into consumption and then impacts on health.
One of the things that the young people found yesterday, which ties into what you just said, so they found 3 of these. It's a standard dairy milk Cadbury's bar with I Love Football on, and then the next one says Man of the Match, and then the third one Game On. So, obviously that's very clearly a chocolate bar. It hasn't actually got any extra sport messaging. What do you make of that?
Savvy if you're being very generous, and galling if you're worried about it, I suppose. You're trying to leverage desirable traits, competition, sport. And like I say, this might sound like a silly point for adults who are listening to this, but if you are a child without a sophisticated knowledge of nutrition and sports science, you might genuinely think that makes you better at sport. To me, that is something that I find really Yeah, just very disconcerting.
I mean, are you aware of anything that's any campaigns or any policy recommendations that would start to look at particularly this link between sport and food?
You have to regulate, if not to be world leading, then at least to set minimum standards so that the food brands who are trying to break through, they're really well intentioned. A really nice example that lots of viewers will remember that wasn't that long ago was tobacco advertising in Formula One. So tobacco used to be one of the last bastions of sports advertising. And that was 15, 20 years ago that those changes happened. So I think that's a really interesting historical example. We can be very, very discreet and very clear about the regulations that we use for food and sport. You know, telling your target market to be responsible, it's a treat. You don't do it very often, while you're relentlessly pushing products down their throat to spend money on a fundamentally health-harming product or activity is just not good enough.
What would happen if it was the reverse? Something that was good for your health was the only thing that was linked to this incredibly powerful force.
I think it could be an absolute game changer. And I also think we would look back and not really miss it.
That was Dan Hunt, public health policy expert. We contacted Coke, McDonald's, Cadbury and McVitie's about their sponsorship of sport events. Cadbury, via its parent company Mondelez, said its sponsorship of football helps support local community initiatives. It also said the company is investing in calorie caps on products that are typically bought for children and consumer education around portion control. We didn't hear back from the others. Then it was time to report back to Leyla with all of my findings.
Hello, Nina. So how did it go? What did you all find out?
Hi, yes. So it went really well. So the young people at Bite Back are particularly concerned about this, and they are right to be, from what I can understand. So sport is clearly a very appealing market through which to reach consumers. At best, it's persuading us to spend money. But at worst, as we heard from Dan Hunt, the public health policy expert, there are some potentially quite serious health implications of this tie-up. But I was also very taken by the idea of sport as a potentially positive force in food. So we've got this huge cultural glue that makes everyone feel good. It could have an immense transformation in some of the big issues we have in food. And that's quite exciting. So that was kind of something we sort of touched on in the end with Dan Hunt. So yeah, I thought that was quite a positive little thought to end on.
Yeah, the world of sport and sports people is so hugely influential. So what the messages they are sending out is really key. What I've got from all of this is that to be able to enjoy sport and exercise at, an everyday average person level, you probably don't need anything more than your usual diet of, 3 balanced meals a day. It doesn't need to be much more complicated than that.
Certainly on the level that most of us do it anyway.
But it has been a completely fascinating journey into food as fuel. If you enjoyed this, you might like to search the food programme on BBC Sounds for our protein episode with Jaga Wise, which she investigated in great detail. And we have got a real summer of sport coming up. There's the football Euros in June, the Paris Olympics, of course, at the end of July, or perhaps just a chance to get active once the weather finally warms up. Whatever it is, as you settle down to watch, play, listen or run, perhaps you might now consider the food side of the sports story too. The food programme was presented by me, Leyla Kazim, and produced by Nina Pullman for BBC Audio in Bristol.